What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the BlockHash podcast. Have another great one for you guys today. With Orbs, I have the VP of Business Development or Business Lead, Rand Hamner, here on the show to discuss how they are leading the way in bringing CeFi level execution to DeFi and what that means. He's going to explain a bit more about Orbs today, what they're working on here in 2025, and some exciting initiatives that they have. So, Rand, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on, man. How you doing?
Doing great. Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
To get things kicked off, I'm sure people would love to get a little bit more background on yourself. If you don't mind sharing, how did you end up in Web3? Everyone's got an interesting story and backgrounds. What's it been like for you? What's your personal journey been like, and how did that kind of lead up to Orbs?
Yeah, so I have everybody has got an interesting story. So mine goes like this. So I used to be a lawyer, like a corporate lawyer. I was doing like high tech stuff in Tel Aviv. And then I had a couple of clients in 2015 starting to do some stuff around Bitcoin. I had one guy who did a crowd, like it was before like the term ICO or stuff like that. So the guy was like doing like crowdfunding campaign. And he got Bitcoin in consideration for, his own token. Came to me, hey, I've done this thing. I have a bunch of Bitcoins I need to convert. And I was like, okay, yeah, what's Bitcoin? So that's kind of how I got exposed to that industry. Then, we had to figure out a way to convert the Bitcoin. We had to do a trade with a small startup called Circle, which is starting to trade the Bitcoin. And essentially, I kind of became like the one guy who was a mildly serious lawyer, but also knew what Bitcoin was. So I got a bunch of clients around that time. Um, did that for a couple of years, then realized being a lawyer is boring. Joined Orbs when the company started, and have been with the project for yeah over 7 years now. And yeah, that's how I ended up in Web3.
Very nice. Was it so boring that you didn't want to do it in Web3 in particular, being a lawyer?
Being like a service provider is not fun. You want to be a part of the team. You want to be building something. You just don't want to be like this guy in the outskirts who's and Orbs, like when the guys, like I'm not a founder, but when the guys started the company, they did sign like the founders agreement on my table. I was there, and I thought, that's actually what they're building was like super cool. They're like the best out of all my clients by far. So I kind of asked like, would you hire me? They're like, yeah, sure, why not? Um, but yeah, so yeah, legal and crypto and blockchain is very, very interesting. And it's crazy how fast that evolves, right? Like I think as of yesterday, right? Today is a day after Trump assumed office. I think the entire legal landscape just changed 180%, especially in the US. So let's see how that kind of unfolds.
Yeah, it's crazy how this entire industry of Web3 changes at such a fast moving and rapid pace, and especially the last few days with the Trump administration taking um, office here in the U.S. and all the sweeping changes that I think are going to come to crypto and in that landscape here. Already tons of stuff has already happened over the last few days. There's posturing for potential executive orders, legislation that might get passed over the next few months, going into the spring. ETFs getting filed again for different blockchains and layers. It's crazy how much it's changing, and hopefully for the good too, and lay some solid foundations. We were talking about this just a second ago. How many projects and companies and startups were leaving the U.S. And now it seems like everyone's trying to get back in the door to do business in the U.S. to find some partnerships and collaborations and to start building again. It's a very interesting point in time.
I'm definitely super bullish. One, it is crazy interesting. Honestly, like you can't be 2 hours away from Twitter. You come back, so like so much going on. You have to figure out like what happened. So yeah, like pace is crazy, and I'm personally like super bullish. I think we had like this big cloud of like regulatory kind of uncertainty that's been hovering above the industry for more than a decade, and now, well, things are not like fully flushed out yet. The entire kind of sound you hear from governments and the narrative like changed completely. um So yeah, I'm very excited and very positive about what's about to come. But time will tell. Let's talk in a couple of years.
So what's a day in the life like for you, Rand, at Orbs as the business lead, the business lord, VP of biz development? Like what are some things that you work on in particular with Orbs?
Yeah, so obviously a bunch of different stuff. Me kind of like under my umbrella, I have yeah, just like the BD, product, marketing, community, all that kind of stuff. From a product perspective, yeah, building super cool stuff, all related to kind of on-chain trading, making, DeFi trading as good or even better than CeFi. That's, I guess, like the main goal. So, a bunch of work around that, different protocols we're building, different products. Then having to communicate all of that to, broader community, token holders, industry people maybe outside the industry looking in. Um, yeah, that's like the marketing side of things. And then, just like um, any Web3 kind of team that's global. We have I'm located in London. We have people in Tel Aviv, have a couple of guys in Seoul, a couple of ladies in Tokyo, a couple of people in Portugal, yeah, Tel Aviv, London. So just like trying to make all that work is also its own effort. So
What would you say is a good way to break down Orbs and give a good overview for it? What is your guys' mission? What are you guys trying to accomplish here in the space? I know that you guys are, in essence, bringing CeFi execution to the DeFi space, but what does that mean exactly, and what some things you guys are trying to tackle?
yeah, so so thank you for the question. We're our own chain. So we have our own decentralized network that we use in order to yeah, essentially have like a better on-chain experience. We don't have our own TVL on-chain, so we're not like an L1 or L2 looking to onboard tokens and then NFTs and DeFi on top of our own layer natively. But we are essentially using this as an additional layer to essentially support and bring better experience to existing L1s and L2s. Um, Again, we're kind of like an older project, been around for quite some time, even before like DeFi was a thing. Um, but we do believe that DeFi is kind of the killer app for blockchain generally. I would say probably payments and DeFi, right? Finance applications. I think this is where the really the innovation comes into play. And we're looking for a while trying to figure out like what's the best product market fit for our tech. Like where is it that we can make the most impact on? And then we kind of landed on essentially making trading experience better. So we are leveraging our own kind of network and tech stack, working with existing DeFi protocols in order to make their experience better. And we have a few different protocols that we put into place. Yeah, so we work with, I guess, pretty no names like PancakeSwap and SushiSwap and QuickSwap and SpookySwap and all the different swaps, Thena, Linux, many of like the leading venues for trading on spot. Work with a bunch of partners on perpetuals as well, and then trying to bring really like better experience on chain using like our tech stack essentially.
Awesome. And then you guys look at yourself as a layer three type protocol, right? How do you delineate between layer three and layer two? It gets confusing for people in the space sometimes. You hear main chain and layer one, layer two, layer three, layer four. Um, how would you best describe that and kind of break down that separation between layer two, layer three?
One, we're the first to use layer three. So it's confusing for people just because like, different people are using like the term layer three to describe different things. But we were first, but fine. Now, and it's honestly, there's like a bunch of like marketing layer to all of this stuff, right? And then you like when you want to break through things, I would say layer two is about scalability, right? You have your L1s like the essentially like the security um layer. That's where most of the assets are. That's like the main store of value chain. So I would say like in the EVM space, let's say that's Ethereum. Then you have layer twos. Layer twos are essentially scaling solutions. So like if the L1 is slow and costly and cumbersome to use, then you have your layer twos that are meant to scale. So essentially, you're talking about lower fees and you're talking about faster TPS. when we are looking at the layer 3 protocol, essentially we're talking about the enhanced execution. So we're not looking to scale the L1 or L2. We're looking to add additional capabilities to the L1s and L2s and to augment them. I would say, try and talk about like a good example for what I view as a layer 3 protocol that's not us. I would say maybe Chainlink, right? You need that layer that reads off-chain data, writes on-chain data, that essentially brings into the like layer 1 or layer 2 information that's outside the chain. So I would say an Oracle network is like a layer 3. For us, again, our layer 3 is not a price Oracle specifically, but is kind of like set up like an Oracle network, essentially built to enhance what you can do with L1s and L2. So essentially automate functions, have events there, have more complex logics, more complex compute, and interact with the L1 and L2 in a way that's seamless for the user, which is a core design principle for us.
Also, want to dive a little bit deeper into the on-chain trading aspects of Orbs as well. So I'm curious how Orbs maybe improves the on-chain trading experience, and maybe what some of those benefits are in relation to things such as on-chain availability and competitive pricing and fees, decentralization, privacy. Um, Maybe you can touch on a few of those different things and maybe how some of those aspects come into play.
When looking at DeFi, like I personally think DeFi is great. It's amazing. You have this like super open kind of ecosystem. You can interact with it. It's all composable. You can build like your complex logic with your, kind of like Lego bricks kind of thing. Um, Very the premise is very like of open finance is very, very, very it's like the possibilities are great, but then you have some stuff that's pulling you back. One is you just have stuff that's not available in DeFi that you have in CeFi, you have in TradeFi, and just not available in DeFi. You have fragmentation. That's a very, very big problem. And you have UX problems, just have stuff that you don't have because of our, just bad user experience. Um, what we do is we launched protocols based on our chain in order improving that. So just giving a few very simple examples. So we launched TWAP, time weighted average price, and limit orders for decentralized exchanges. So these are, I say, the most basic out of advanced type order types you would see in CeFi. You'd go with Binance, you'd go on Coinbase. These are very these are like very basic trades people would do, right? You don't have that in DeFi, and the reason you don't have a DeFi is mostly technical, right? You don't have it's hard to build automated stuff like event-based stuff using smart contracts alone. And then with the additional execution layer of Orbs, you can essentially build that, and that's what we've done, and this has been massively successful. So we have I think right now 25 different venues using our TWAP and limit orders. This year we're building stop loss as well, which we think is going to be an easy sell. Everybody wants stop loss, and nobody today does this in a way that's fully decentralized because it does have a few technical challenges that needs to be solved. Another protocol we have is Liquidity Hub. What Liquidity Hub does is essentially taps into all existing liquidity sources in order to make DEX UI swaps competitive, essentially make DEXs great again, because they're losing a lot of ground to aggregators. So just like overcoming liquidity fragmentation and providing better prices for users. I guess the biggest new thing we're working on now is perps, on-chain perpetuals. That's been pretty hot last few months with Hyperliquid doing very well. But still, this is like a super, super blue ocean because you only have like 1% of all futures, like perps trades being on-chain as compared to like 20% of spot. So there's still a lot to be built there. And, that's also a thing you can't really solve with just smart contracts. So you need some additional technology stack to help you build that in a way that works good for users.
And do you guys have any use cases in particular that maybe have been worked on as of recently that maybe you can highlight as an example, maybe in relation to something in DeFi or a DEX or something that kind of paints that picture pretty good?
Yeah, so T open limit was one. I guess I can elaborate a bit about Liquidity Hub. So with Liquidity Hub, So again, the main problem of like the DEX UI is when you come in to trade, you're limited to essentially the liquidity that's available on the specific DEX. And liquidity in DeFi is super fragmented. It's fragmented across different chains, across different DEXs within the chain, and across different pools within the DEX. And the more liquidity is fragmented, the worse the price the user will get. What we've done with Liquidity Hub is essentially use the Orbs layer in order to aggregate all existing liquidity sources on any specific chain. So we have same chain solvers, like all the different aggregators, essentially like a meta aggregator for them. So like all those OpenOcean, PowerSwap, Kyber, then Unizen, Rango, a bunch of those. We also connected with market makers and hedgers who are essentially bringing in off-chain liquidity. So they would trade on-chain and then go hedge themselves somewhere else on a different chain or in CeFi. And then essentially you have all of those competing to provide the best price for the user. So essentially the user gets like the full liquidity that's available in the market to wherever they decide to trade. So that's been very, very successful. And we've been able to provide prices that are much better than what the user would otherwise get without Liquidity Hub. And then this also comes, it's like all the cool stuff. It's like intent-based architecture, right? People have been talking about that. The user doesn't really care about how things happen. He just wants to express the intent to buy a token and get it the best possible price. So Liquidity Hub uses that. And then everybody's talking about account abstraction, right? You want to abstract the technical complexities away from the user, right? So Liquidity Hub does that. The user doesn't have to care like where the liquidity comes from. It doesn't have to care about paying gas. Liquidity Hub is gasless. So you get like all the cool stuff in order to make really the user experience much, much better in terms of price and execution. And yeah, so that's I would say another example.
And then what about execution services, maybe help improve the developer experience? It's like such as Orbs Lambda and Orbs VM. I was like seeing pop up on the website when I was kind of browsing through some stuff. What can you kind of touch on in regards to that?
Essentially, what we wanted to achieve is a developer experience that's very similar to what like Web2 developers would get working just on cloud. So like the main two execution services you have on Orbs is Orbs VM, which is very similar to like AWS EC2. It's just like it's just like a virtual machine that can run your code, your script in any programming language. Like it doesn't have to be Solidity. It can be whatever. And then Lambda is like an event-based. So VM just sits there. Lambda is like per requirement. But again, this is all like very like legacy basic stuff that you have in just cloud computing and didn't really have like blockchains don't work that way. So when developers are coming to implement a logic that's more complex, it would get a lot of hurdles. It would have a lot of like pain points they could not solve just with Solidity. But when you have the combination of all the stuff that Solidity gives you, or like smart contracts gives you, has a bunch of advantages. Take that and add on top of that another layer that lets you do all the fancy stuff you can do with just like normal cloud computing in a way that's still decentralized, right? This is still like a delegated proof of stake network. Then you can build like much more complex logics that are still fully decentralized, and that's what we are aiming with that. In terms of go-to-market, we're pushing for a while. Honestly, we're pushing like, hey, we have this like Lambda and VM, just come build on that. It was a harder sell. It's just like harder getting like DeFi developers to really understand that. So we said, hey, we'll just like build our own protocols on top of that, see how that goes, and maybe that will show people like what you can do with that technology. And these have been massively successful with, again, TWAP, Limit, Liquidity Hub, Perpetual Hub. So I guess like at least for 2025, still we're probably gonna be building our own protocols on top of this. And I'm not sure how many like third-party developers would be onboarded at this point, just as a go-to-market, I guess.
Yeah, I thought VM and Lambda were pretty interesting. It's very similar to AWS, right? Like fewer lines of code, no DevOps, no instances, like a much more simpler experience. Do you guys have any existing partnerships, any upcoming collaborations that maybe you guys are working on? I know that Animoca Brands Japan became a node operator last fall. anything coming up here in 2025 that might be of interest to people that you guys can kind of touch upon?
Yeah, so the only thing is like you can never really talk about this stuff before it comes out, but I'll say this. So I guess we have like two sides of the of like the business. One side is the protocols we integrate with on the product side, and then the that's one side of the business. The other side of the business is essentially the validators. We've all seen big projects that got a lot of heat for being very, very centralized in terms of who their validator base is. Not gonna mention names here. Um, so again, just being around as long as we've been, we're really been able to have like a really good, diverse set of validators. I guess the last two big ones that joined this year was Animoca Japan. That's a good, very good partnerships we started this year. They're running a validator. They're bringing in delegation, and they're quite bullish about this. So that's an amazing brand. We also had DWF join this year. We also have a bunch of exchanges, OKX, Bithumb, Moonstack, Crosstack, while also we have just people running a node independently with their own personal stake. So it's a nice combination. And yeah, in terms of integrations this year, still, gunning for all dexes. So essentially any dex that's out there listening, we want to work with you. Um, yeah, so I guess like last year, the biggest two kind of new dexes we onboarded was PancakeSwap and SushiSwap. That was amazing. Like a couple of the biggest names. Um, there's a few ones I want to get. I want to get Trader Joe. I want to get Camelot. There's a few out there that we haven't gotten yet, but there's pretty yeah, there's a pretty good pipeline. I guess the thing I could mention here, just because maybe it's gonna even be out by the time this episode is out, is we're very, very bullish on Sonic. Sonic is the new revamp Phantom. I'm not sure if that's their marketing, right? But that's like the new, yeah. So that's like the new chain that comes from like the team that was behind FTM, Andre and the guys. So we're very, very bullish on that chain. We think the launch is already looking very, very good, and a lot of TVL is coming over. And we are working there with three different dexes in terms of deploying like our full suite of products, advanced order types, liquidity hub, perps. Yeah, and that's some of it is already live. The next is going to be live within the next couple of weeks, and we're planning a pretty big, marketing incentive campaign on Sonic. So we hope that's going to be good.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Sonic. I actually had them on the show last year. We did an episode with them, and we'll actually have PancakeSwap on the show Monday, or we'll be doing
Ah, nice.
the recording on Monday. So maybe I'll bring that up. We'll chat about that too.
Yeah,
um,
they're a very good partner.
what else is on the roadmap for you guys this year? Will you guys be attending any events, conferences, engagements, anything in person in particular? Any place where people can kind of meet up with you guys and chit chat?
Yeah, definitely. So we're on the road. Like we're trying to do most of the big conferences. We've done like 12 last year, and probably gonna have the same number this year. I guess next big one. So I can't do Hong Kong because I'm moving houses um on that week, but we're gonna be in Denver, and probably Paris Blockchain Week, Token 2049 Dubai, ETHCC. It's in Cannes this year, which is actually pretty cool. So I'm looking forward to that one. And then yeah, over the summer, all the Asia trips. So Tokyo, Seoul, Singapore. Yeah, and we'll see what else. I like to keep like a couple of outliers, like new places I haven't been to. Um, yeah, that's on the conference side of things. And yeah, we have an interesting year I think coming up. It's funny, this stuff. We had a 3-year plan, okay, which is like weird to do in crypto and DeFi. Things happen. We're just talking about it. Things happen so fast. Um, yeah, but we said, okay, we'll do like a 3-year plan. Community was like gunning at us saying, we like, what's the plan? What are you doing? So, okay, fine. We'll lay out the plan. Honestly, I was 100% sure we're not gonna be able to like actually execute. I'm gonna have to tell them, oh, let's like we need to change things. But it actually happened. We had like 2022 was like ideation, like what do we want to do with the chain, what's like the go to market. Then 2023 was like getting some usage and integration, and then 2024 was like growth and starting to make revenue, which we are. We had over $1 million in revenue in last year just for on-chain stuff we've done, which it's not like crazy as compared to a market cap. Still, like being able to actually make money that's not just like weird token emissions in DeFi is crazy. It doesn't, not a lot of projects are able to do that. So yeah, in 2025, we just want to grow that. We want to scale that, want to, grow, make more revenue, and hopefully come out with a model that distributes that revenue to token holders. We have a few options on how to do that exactly. So hopefully we'll roll that out this year as well. So yeah, pretty bullish.
That's exciting, man. Another question just kind of popped into my head, and I'm just kind of curious if you guys see a lot of dev interest to build, whether it's on Orbs or separate from Orbs, coming from any specific region or countries. Like, are you seeing a lot of dev interest in building come from Asia, from Europe, from the US? Like, can you kind of tell? Like, I'm curious what the landscape maybe is looking like and where some of the builders are starting to originate from here in 2025, or maybe even from last year. Maybe that paints a good picture for this year.
Yeah, so I would say this. Legacy, we had like our couple of very strong markets for us have been Korea and Japan. Like specifically, we're like a very strong token and a bit, and also we have like a very long-standing Korean community and Japanese community. But from a builder perspective, you see less DeFi there. Like DeFi is not as developed there as it is elsewhere. In terms of like projects we're seeing, so it's all global, but we're seeing a bunch, obviously a lot of US interest coming in, a bunch of devs coming from there, a lot of European as well, not necessarily people who actually stay within the EU to make their business, just because EU is not like the easiest place to do business in any sector, I think. But so people move around, people are like everywhere. But we have seen, yeah, so I guess like I'm thinking, just trying to think through like our different partners. So a bunch of like different Asians from like wherever, some people are originally Chinese, originally yeah, a lot of people are from Singapore, or who live in Singapore now at least, and originate from different places in Asia. A lot of yeah, a lot of Europeans. A lot of them are not in Europe right now. A bunch of people in Cyprus, a bunch of people in a lot of people are in Dubai. Crypto, that was a very friendly place last few years. And yeah, obviously a lot of US as well. Um, and I do feel the narrative now is kind of like moving back to US. A lot of people who have been living elsewhere, or is trying to be like, away from like regulation that's too vague or aggressive. I feel like a lot of these people are going to move back this year. And again, we have to see how this, term kind of plays out, right? But I feel at least like the general kind of sentiment is very US focused, right? Like US focused chain. Everybody's like running to Solana now. And by the way, like we haven't supported Solana for years. We're like looking at it saying, like we have enough EVM stuff, and it's like a lot of dev effort to go to Solana, and we have all the EVM infrastructure. But honestly, now like we can't ignore it anymore. We're just talking about we have to go to Solana. We have to, hire Solana devs and go work there, because it's like it's too big to ignore at this point. That's it.
Absolutely. In regards to the US, I think there's a lot still up in the air, and it'll take some time to know exactly what that looks like and what direction. Well, we know the direction it's going, but exactly how those things shape up will take some more time. It'll be interesting. This is going to be a very fun and exciting year, and probably for you guys as well. And I appreciate it, Rand, coming on the show today and talking about Orbs. I think you guys are doing some great things as an L3. Exciting to see what you guys are working on and maybe how you guys continue to evolve over the course of this year. So keep me up to date and let me know how things are going. Maybe later in this year, maybe halfway, we can do a part 2 and dive a bit more into some partnerships that you guys are working on and some cool things that are getting built on top of Orbs. But keep me in the loop in the meantime, man.
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate your time, and for giving us the stage. Yeah, we'll definitely keep in touch, and be happy to let you know when things happen.
Take care. We'll talk soon, and Happy New Year, by the way. I can still
Cheers,
say
happy
that
New
it's
Year, my friend.
January.
Yeah, yeah. I can say that. I think for Q1, you can still say Happy New Year.
For the whole Q1. Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
exactly.
All right, man. Talk to you soon. Take care.
Okay, cheers. Thank you very much.